What's the most paranormal thing that's ever happened to you? Previous response from myself pertaining to my family members. My family, grandpa, grandma, mom, 2 aunts, and uncle, went camping at Bonnie Reservoir in Colorado. This would have occurred in the early 60s. The children ranged from ages 1 to 13, with one of my aunts being the eldest, uncle being behind at 11, my mom at 7 or 8, and my other aunt at 1. My grandparents would have been in their 30s. They were camping in a Volkswagen bus, the camping model specifically. My grandfather was an experienced outdoorsman, having grown up in rural Illinois during the Depression. Growing up, my mom and siblings were took along on many camping trips. This particular trip was no different in its planning and remained routine until the evening, when my grandfather failed to return from a fishing excursion that he had undertaken by himself. 9 p.m. rolls around, and it's dark, blacker than the blackest black times infinity. The family is concerned. My grandfather has never been late like this. Now, according to my uncle and older aunt, my grandma decided to drive to the dock, which be a logical place to begin the search. My grandma started to drive around the lake, not realizing she had made a wrong turn. After 15 minutes or so, my younger aunt starts to fuss, and my grandma pulls off to the shoulder of the road to check on her. At this point, my mom, uncle and older aunt have begun looking out the windows, and my uncle realizes they can't see the lake. My grandma has gotten the 1-year-old settled, and she gets behind the wheel and begins to make a 3-point turn to turn around. As soon as she fires up the bus, the 3 oldest kids see hundreds of rabbits running across the ground away from the left side of the road, the side that will be in view momentarily. As my grandma completes the first step of the turn, she throws the van in reverse, and realizes she can't back up as there is a 3 to 4 foot ditch behind her, and a similar ditch in front. She remembers putting the bus in park. A red light appeared in the distance, with rabbits scurrying along the ground away from it. The light turned white, then red. It was sweeping back and forth. It looked like my grandfather's signaling light. He'd used it often, and my family knew what it was. Now, as they're watching this light move back and forth, something slams into the hood, and bright white light floods the bus. My grandpa is up all night, after returning to the campsite late. He had run into an old friend on the water and stayed out later than anticipated. He got to the camp at midnight, and when he realized that his family was gone, he went to the ranger station and asked for assistance. They searched for them and were preparing to dredge and/or dive for the vehicle when the bus was spotted on an old service road, 20 miles or so from the lake. My grandpa was the first to get there. He walked to the door, and as soon as he opened it, my grandma fell out of the driver's seat and said, "Oh, thank God you're here." She landed in his arms and began crying. Her watch, which was purchased less than 6 months prior as a birthday gift, had stopped at 11:15 p.m., which would have corresponded with the flash of light. The kids were sleeping soundly. They had no recollection after the flash. My entire family, minus my youngest aunt, have told the story. They have made drawings of it. I believe them. They have nothing to gain. They cry when they tell it. I get the goosebumps. TLDR, effing aliens, guys. My husband and I were having dinner at a very small restaurant in the basement of a 16th century Amsterdam canal house, and there was a single lit candle on the table. In the middle of eating, the candlestick and its base flies off our table onto the floor, as if someone had knocked it very hard with their hand. The waitress turns around and asks if we did that, and we say no. We all get very creeped out and nervously laugh. Food was great, though. Crazy demon tree story. Let me preface this by saying I am one of the most skeptical people you'll ever meet. I'm not religious, I don't believe in ghosts or aliens in the come-to-earth, abductions, etc. sense. There's probably a good chance there's life out there somewhere in the vastness of space, or any of that. This is the weirdest thing I've ever encountered, and I have no real logical explanation for it. No drugs or booze were involved. My friends and I went camping up in the White Mountains of NH most summers in middle and high school, and a few years after till life happened and we all went our ways. Now, being a bunch of unorganized teen boys, man-children, we always took forever to get in gear and actually get going, usually not leaving southern MA where we lived until late afternoon, early evening. One year we got up there about 10 p.m. or so, and decided rather than hike into the woods we'd just sort of camp, crash out in the parking lot and hike in the AM. After a bit of unwinding and some food, everyone went to bed except for me and one other dude. We ended up wandering over to a small wooden footbridge over a river. It was a perfectly clear night filled with stars and a fairly bright moon, and we were shooting the breeze for a good couple hours about all sorts of stuff, movies, games, life, etc., etc. Had to be well after midnight by this point. As we were chatting, we both got this creepy feeling of something being there, and it was sinister. Looking at the far end of the bridge, there was this massive, dead tree, no leaves, just clawing branches, silhouetted against the sky. We both were like, man, I swear that tree is creeping me out, but that's silly, right? At first we tried to dismiss it as silly, but both of us kept feeling more and more unnerved until I finally was like, screw this, I'm a grown man, I'm not afraid of a damn tree, I'ma walk over there. I get like 2/3 RDs of the way across the bridge and it feels like something reached in and grabbed my pounding heart. Just went totally ice cold. I backed up and was like, yeah, I'm afraid of a tree. I seriously think I'm not coming back if I go over there. We retreated from the bridge and decided to go to bed back in the sleeping bags by the car. Next morning, after breakfast, we decide to hike into the trail by going across that bridge. Halfway across, my friend freezes. Dude. I look across the bridge. It's a clearing. There's no trees there. So about 6 months after I bought our house, I started noticing something odd. Every once in a while I would catch sight of something out of the corner of my eye and always assume it was my cat since it was the same size, shape, and moved like a cat. However, I would realize a few seconds later that my cat was in the yard or another room. I would try to look back, but nothing was ever there. It was so quick I always dismissed it. Once, at night, I saw it on the ceiling and I about had a heart attack. I also would hear things in the house. I thought my husband was doing the dishes due to the clinking in the sink, but then I would realize he was in the bedroom and the kitchen was empty. It took about a year for my husband and I to start wondering aloud if we were actually seeing things or if something was up. Turns out he was seeing stuff too, just little flashes here and there. My husband said he heard some stuff too on his days off when no one was home. The biggest moment was when I woke up in the middle of the night and saw my cat curled up on my side table. I heard him purring. His fur looked darker and his purr was lower, but I was half asleep and didn't notice. I went to the bathroom and on my way I passed my cat sleeping in the hallway. It actually took me a few seconds, but I literally felt my chest turn cold. I went back into my bedroom and saw that the bedside table was empty. We're pretty sure we got a cat ghost in our house. The only thing I know about the previous owner was that he was put into a mental hospital. I have had to route a bunch of paperwork back to him over the years because his affairs were very clearly not taken care of when he was hospitalized. My theory is that he had a cat that got lost in the shuffle and it's waiting for him to come back. I got a story about my cat. I got my tuxedo cat, Squeals, when I was around 13 and he lived for 5 years. I remember the day my mom told me he went missing. I was always mad at her for letting him out. We lived in an apartment beside a busy street and she would always give me the bullshit excuse he needs to be outside so he doesn't feel like he's in jail. If you want your cat to live a long life, don't let him outside. Anyways, the day Squeals went missing, I went looking for him for a few hours around my neighborhood yelling out his name. I didn't find him. So that night I said a prayer while I was crying my eyes out. Squeals, please, if you're on the other side, I need you to come visit me tonight so I can stop worrying, please. That night I had the most beautiful dream that I can still remember to this day. I was in my bed in the morning and my room was surrounded in this most beautiful light blue light, and Squeals jumped up into my bed one last time and I swear I could hear his purring. I woke up and I knew at that moment my little tuxedo kitty was waiting for me in the clouds. For a while too, when I lived in that apartment, I could see a little dark shadow about the size of a cat moving in the corner of my eye. I wouldn't feel scared at all, I just knew that was Squeals stopping by for a visit. I love you, kitty, and I'll see you again one day. I was maybe like 8 or 9, maybe 10. I was at one of my friend's houses. I used to be good friends with her, and I needed to go to the bathroom. I got in there and I saw a hand reach out from behind the shower curtain. I looked behind it and her cat was there. It wasn't a cat paw, although it was a full-on human hand with no human behind it. I don't think I've experienced anything as scary as that. From pretty much the first night after my dad died, I started seeing him in my dreams. I didn't think anything of it at first because I figured that's a perfectly reasonable subconscious response to losing a loved one. The weird thing though was that he looked seriously real. Everything else in my dream would have that strange, cartoonish vibe to it, yet I could look at my dad and count the individual hairs in his mustache and on his head. In one of the dreams, I became lucid and realized I was asleep. I asked my dad point blank, "Are you visiting me or is this just a figment of my imagination? I need to know." He smiled, hugged me, and said, "I'm here with you right now, son, and I always will be. I love you." I woke up suddenly, and as I did, I saw a very light shadow. Had it not moved, I wouldn't have seen it. It was a head and shoulders, leaning through the doorway and into my room. As soon as I saw it, it quickly moved away and backed out of my room. Somehow it was calming rather than scary. I was absolutely amazed, because that's exactly what my dad used to do when I was little and he left really early for work. He'd pop his head in and say goodbye. The way this shadow moved was exactly the same. I'm convinced it was him checking in on me. If that wasn't strange enough, my mum called me downstairs that same morning. She tells me to go into the living room and look at the floor. I go in and guess what? Dad's reading glasses have somehow ended up slap bang in the middle of the room. That 110% confirmed it for me. I don't experience anything like this ever nor believe in it, but there was this one time. There's a cabinet near the top of my staircase and I had placed my water bottle on it, not on the edge but in the middle, where in no way would it be able to fall off on its own or due to any breeze. I'm sitting on the couch, which is a couple feet away from the cabinet, and the water bottle simply flies off the cabinet like someone sucker punched it and goes flying down the staircase. I was home alone. It was 1 a.m. and I have no clue why it happened. Don't want to think about it, I just keep living my life. I'm not too believing in ghosts, but I once saw a mist on my chair that kind of vaguely looked like my deceased pop-up just casually rocking in the chair. When I told my mom about this, she had told me a story that took place about 25 or so years prior. She had the record player, knowing mom it was probably Bob Dylan or Fleetwood Mac, in her room rather loud, and her mother told her from the other room to turn it down a little. My mother responded, "Yes mom," to her mom, but she realized that her mom had been dead for a year or two. My mom, who is slightly religious, but does not believe in the local church there was a priest that had raped a nun, says that her parents still look after us from the grave. If her parents do, that is rather kind of them. When I was younger, about 6th grade, and moving to a new city, my mother and I were looking at new houses. After a long day of going house to house, we found one that my mom and I instantly fell in love with. When it was time to go into one of the last rooms, we all walked in, and I remember walking into this small pale blue room and getting this weird feeling throughout my body and had to run outside and throw up. My mom and realtor followed, and that's when she asked how we knew what happened, and then my mom, confused, said, "Knew what?" And then she told my mom that someone had just recently died in that room. I still have dreams about that room. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. New videos released daily. Leave a comment below and let us know what Reddit content you would like us to cover next.